The introduction of immunotherapy in squamous cell carcinoma of the head and neck has really completely changed the landscape. It now provides an option for patients that can extend their survival, that can improve their symptoms, and can do so at without the cost of high toxicity. Again, we have to learn to manage those immune-related toxicities, but the percentage of patients who have a serious adverse event from immunotherapy is going to be much, much lower than with chemotherapy. So it really has completely changed the world. For a drug like pembrolizumab, we know and we have data to demonstrate that even in patients who have had platinum and whose cancers have progressed, patients who and have had cetuximab and whose cancers have progressed, this drug works. And that is from the so-called Keynote 55 study that enrolled patients with both platinum and cetuximab-refractory cancers and demonstrated about an 18% response rate. And again, at a very favorable toxicity profile. Conversely, for a drug like nivolumab, we have randomized data that demonstrate that nivolumab extends survival in patients with platinum-refractory disease when compared to a choice of either methotrexate, docetaxel, or cetuximab. And so now we have two agents that are approved in the United States to treat patients with recurrent or metastatic disease, either pembrolizumab or nivolumab, that have demonstrated efficacy and a very favorable toxicity profile. When we think about pembrolizumab and how we use it in patients with head and neck cancer, we have to realize that it's a flat dose. And that is a little bit different than the drug was developed in, let's say, melanoma or non-small cell lung cancer. Let's spend a moment thinking about why that is and how this came to be. When the drug was initially developed, it was developed as a weight-based dosing in the phase 1 study and eventually settled on a 2 milligram per kilogram dose, mostly because the efficacy appeared to be similar than higher doses, and the pharmacokinetics, the pharmacology, appeared to be very similar, certainly to 10 milligrams per kilogram. When the study then began to enter patients with head and neck cancer, actually, the phase 1 trial entered those patients at a dose of 10 milligrams per kilogram because that was the dose that was being used in other studies. About the first 60 patients were entered at that dose, and we have efficacy data, we have toxicity data at 10 milligrams per kilogram. The pharmacology began to get better understood, and it was quickly realized that a flat dose of 200 milligrams delivered the same efficacy, a very similar toxicity profile, and a very similar pharmacokinetics, at least when you think about exposure, to 10 milligrams per kilogram of pembrolizumab. And so for the latter part of the Keynote 012 study, the phase 1b trial that enrolled head and neck cancer patients, patients were enrolled at a dose of 200 milligrams. And in fact, the approved dose in head and neck cancer is 200 milligrams. That offers some advantages over a weight-based dosing, but it also has introduced, unfortunately, some confusion when you think about it in the context of other diseases like melanoma or non-small cell lung cancer. What is going to make things easier in the long run is that, in all likelihood, pembrolizumab is going to go to a flat dose across all of its diseases once we have the data in all of those other cancers.
So Keynote 012 is an open-label phase 1b clinical trial that enrolled patients with recurrent or metastatic head and neck cancer that have failed a platinum-based therapy. The trial required that patients have a PD-L1 expression of more than 1%. The trial basically led to about a 17% rate of grade 3 and 4 toxicities incurred from the single agent pembrolizumab. In addition to this, the response rate that was observed was about 18% in a pre-treated population. Keynote 055 followed up on the results of 012 and treated about 172 patients with recurrent metastatic head and neck cancer. And these patients also had to fail platinum-based therapy and had to fail cetuximab as well. And the preliminary information from this trial that was reported at ASCO of 2016 basically confirms the results of KEYNOTE-012, which is that pembrolizumab in a heavily pretreated patient population results in a response rate of about 18%. So this basically confirms the data from 012.